Hello and welcome to War Down South, a new fortnightly podcast about anything Warhammer from the south coast of England. My name is Callum and I'll be joined by my co-host Ricky.
Hey.
And Sam.
Hello.
Our very first week we'll be introducing ourselves, talking about any current projects we're working on, before launching into a discussion about our very first impressions of the new edition of Warhammer 40k and what we expect to see going forward. So sit back with a nice stiff drink and let's get after it. Cheers. Okay, well, thanks very much for joining us. And so what we're going to do now is just quickly go over a little bit about ourselves, how we all know each other, and what we really, really, really love about Warhammer. So, Ricky, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, cool. Yeah. I have been playing Warhammer-related games for the past 25 years, since I was a little nipper. And know yourself and Sam probably close to as long, but not quite, because that would be a little bit weird. From pretty much when we were young, from when we used to hang out at our local Games Workshop. And yeah, so about me, I am a massive Eldar fan, as those who do know me will probably know. Have probably close to about 10 to 12,000 points of them. With the new points increases, probably even more than that now. So I can tick off another 5,000 points worth of Eldar there, which is pretty cool, without actually having to buy any more. Damn. So the wife will be happy.
Cool, yeah. So for as long as I've known you, you've been playing with Eldar, and I'm pretty sure that you've got several different craft worlds going on, as well as some Harlequins as well, I believe, which is really cool. So other than Eldar, what are your favourite things about the
hobby? Literally, like, I don't know. It's this superb diversity of what it is that we do. It's a massively social hobby. It gets you out and about with your mates. It gets you out there meeting new people, and it's just a great way to, interact. Whether it can be online playing a computer game version of it, or physically face to face with someone. And to be fair, for me, there's nothing better than just, racking up a club night or around a mate's house or at a tournament or something like that, having a couple of beers, having a couple of rums, or your favorite beverage. Obviously, there's other beverages available.
No, there's not.
No, there's not. There's rum. Yeah,
and more rum.
And more rum. It just brings a massive social bond between like-minded people. Really, it's really difficult to say. Like, when you've been doing it for so long and you've evolved as a child through the entire aspect of the hobby, and then you've grown up and you finally dusted off that I'm ashamed of my hobby, and it's no longer an underground a thing that you do. It really is like,
oh yeah,
a massive part of your life, or a part of your social life entirely. I mean, look at us lot. There's how many of us were in our group? 10, 12 of us maybe. We travel. We spend a lot of time together. We talk hobby a lot, and we spend a lot of time having a good few drinks. And
yeah,
this hobby has brought our friendships together over a course of 20 odd years.
Exactly. And we've come up with great group mascots like Mr. Tip and stuff. And those trips are some of the greatest trips ever. Like, the whole Bang Bus thing that evolved from my stag do.
I was not there at that Bang Bus thing.
You were there. Well, you weren't in that vehicle, but you were there.
No, I wasn't in the vehicle. No, so
no, you're lucky.
Missed out on the whole Bang Bus. But as the happy creator of Mr. Tip, I am. I'm hoping I can hold this all together.
Yeah. So other than so we'll get away from penis mascots. Uh, what about you, Sam? Tell us a little bit about yourself. When did you first get into the hobby, and your
Yeah,
wife?
so with Ricky owning up to how long he's been a nerd, that has given me the shocking realization as to how long I have been one. So, um, as of this year, I will have been into this hobby on and off for the best part of 30 years.
Wow. I thought
After a
I
mate's
was
older
old.
brother threw like a giant box of miniatures at me and his little brother and went, "I'm done with these. You can have them." And thus started my metal and plastic crack addiction.
Yes, I'm not the oldest.
Yep,
And you,
yep, I am Methuselah. But yeah, most of my hobby is focused on 40k at the moment. Bit of an eclectic mix of what going on. The recent years has been mostly Imperial stuff, but I've
Ooh.
probably done something with pretty much any miniature range from Games Workshop you can probably think of over time. Just finished up a marine project and I'm now working on a guard project at the moment using my now relegated to Legends, Renegades, and Heretics miniatures. So they're going to be a suspicious looking guard regiment.
hey,
Nice.
yeah, they're it's from the bits and pieces I've seen of those, they're coming along really well. And you've always liked the sort of wackier aspects of
Yeah, yeah,
chaos.
I like the odds and ends and things that people wouldn't bother using, but
Yeah, your armies aren't normal, are they, Sam?
no, no, I like wacky and or a low model count, and those two things aren't mutually exclusive.
What about you, Callum?
So yeah, I've been playing GW games since about 2001, I think. So about 18, 19 years. Um,
Oh, so young, so young.
He's a
so
wee baron.
yeah, um, and that was mainly because my favorite book series, The Lord of the Rings, got made into a bunch of films, and then obviously GW licensed the miniatures game, and I've been essentially
Nerd.
play, playing it. Um, you know, COVID aside, week on week for the last 18, 19 years. So, yeah, it's been an integral part of my um, all the way through my teens, through my early 20s, up till however old I am now. And like you were saying, Ricky, it's helped me form a really core, great friendship group of bizarre people. Uh, but we've all sort of just grown accustomed to it, really.
Yeah,
Um, I really enjoy um, the social aspect of it. Help run a weekly club over in Havant, um, as well as just interacting with you two and our extended group of friends constantly throughout the day, all day, every day, talking toys and video games and movies and stuff. Um, but but within the hobby, I really just enjoy playing the games. Um, that's where I always seem to get the satisfaction from. Love building the models, love converting them. Really dislike painting. Not a huge fan of actually having to get my models painted. Um,
Which
but
is quite ironic because you paint probably more than both of us combined.
yeah, but that's probably because I buy more armies than both of you combined. So
So you have more expendable cash than the two of us combined.
I don't know about that, but just look at it as I change my own mind more often than most. I'm
Yeah, all
already,
right, yeah,
I'm already
that's fair game. That's
more,
fair
no,
game.
no,
How's your
not
Grey
you.
Knights, Callum? How's your Grey Knights?
well, yeah. I'm already on to my second project of ninth edition. It's going to help me. Yeah, that takes.
We're a week in.
We'll, I'm sure we'll go over that a bit later. Um, so other than so we sort of already touched on the project at the moment. Sam, you were saying that you're currently working on a guard or a renegade
Mm.
Taran project. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, yeah. So originally, I went down the Renegades and Heretics route after a mutual friend of ours gave up on the project. I was like, no, I'll take that off your hands. Um, and then very quickly realised that the army would be infinitely better played with the Imperial Guard Codex. So just been hoarding things for that project, and I've settled on two lists with it that I would like to play with. One, which isn't really anything out of the ordinary, what I would like to call a sensible guard list, and the other, which has my red-headed stepchild super heavy tank company. So wacky tanks that are generally ignored by other people will form my super heavy tank company. So that's got like a Macaris, a Valdor, and a Minotaur siege tank in it, and then some artillery and bodies to back that up, which is going to be terrible. But I want to take full advantage of all my stupid tanks now having the blast rule, other than the Valdor.
Yeah, so entirely things that you never see, and your opponents look on their face, I imagine, is confusion as you're having to explain what all the rules are, because they've probably never even heard of the tanks, let alone played against.
Yeah, like a confrontation last year. The poor somebody put his Viper jet bike in front of my Valdor, and I was like, well, I could shoot the important things in your army, but that's right there. So proceeded to fire 6 strength 14 shots into one Viper.
Did it live?
No, but I did take my time to explain that it would be a -1 to hit next turn if it did.
That's very valiant of you.
Well, you don't want to demoralise someone, do you?
No.
And
how many points is that tank?
Before it was a lovely budget 392 points. Now
that Viper was probably what, 45 points?
Probably now it can be yours for the budget price of 420 points all in. That's if you give it the single las cannon sponson that it can have.
Wonderful. That is a perfect trade-off.
And they're all are they so your Renegades and Heritage project, that's all out of the using all the old 40-odd models, isn't it?
Yes.
All
yeah.
Kits and stuff, and
lots of Renegade militia.
All the Ogrins and stuff like that.
Yeah, Ogrins and stuff. I've converted a few bits, like Rogue Psychers, Astropaths and stuff. I did have a Rogue Psyker Coven, which is not going to see play now, but I'm tempted to kit bash a sort of Fallen Inquisitor to slot in there with the look of the Force, because Inquisition fanboy dies hard, and I'd use those as some acolytes.
Nice. And is there like a particular theme to the aesthetics of the army, or just generally?
I have kept it very, very simple with the tanks. I've got it's almost like a navy sort of grey with lots of rust and grime on it. And all the infantry are in orange prison overalls. So it's my prison riot Catachan army.
Yeah, it is. They are quite a sight to see. I can't wait for you to actually get the army finished and on the table and start making you take off those ridiculous.
Yeah, I've got brushes out at the moment on the Minotaur. I am treating myself to occasionally painting some more rivets.
Whilst,
I don't envy that.
Whilst Sam's painting rivets on his unknown tanks, Ricky, have you got anything particularly you're working on at the moment?
Well, it's quite interesting, really. So,
Eldar, isn't it?
Well, Eldar have obviously, there was a lot of cry out there that Eldar have had a big kick in the teeth with this new edition, and now I think that the books have dropped. That's not really the case. So I've been throwing lots of new Eldar lists together with what I've got and what I can put together with minimal cost to myself, which is fairly easy to do.
When you've got so much of it.
Yeah, well, that's it. But also, new rules and so on like that, Harlequins have become, I think, exceptionally strong in the new edition, and I've been toying with how to get them back on the battlefield. But we've, new edition, new army, whole thing going about. I've kind of got a bit of a custodes type thing going on at the moment.
Oh my!
Um, secrets out. I'm looking at putting together a small custodes force. Naturally, it's going to have some black on it because you wouldn't see an army of mine without black.
Yeah.
But yeah, a big fan of the Alaris Terminators, so a bit of a focus on those bad boys. A small elite Imperial force that I can expand on as the edition grows and so on. Basically, really, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait out um, Eldar at the start of this edition, I think,
Yeah.
because
See how the
with the drop of Jane Czar and the new Banshees and so on at the end of eighth, I really see a big future for Eldar for ninth. And yeah, I'm gonna kind of hold off and hope that the edition gets a bit of a revamp, and then return my focus back there. So yeah, in the meantime, going to do a bit of Golden Boy love, and see where it goes from there. Really.
Yeah. Well, it's a nice it's quite a nice simple project into. There's a limited model range. I mean, everything hits on twos with everything it does. Everything's got a 2-up armor save. Fairly easy way to start the edition, really. That's quite cool.
Yeah. What about you? You've started dabbling with Grey Knights, and now you've not dabbling in Grey Knights.
So my official position is that I am still dabbling in Grey Knights.
Probably ADHD.
From what I've seen, I beg to differ.
Yeah, so essentially, I picked up a fairly basic Grey Knight army once we started to see the rules leaks and stuff for 9th edition. Essentially, quite a small, hard-hitting army that can jump around the board and batter people in a variety of different ways. And in my head, they were going to be a really quick and easy army to paint because it's silver army. And then it took me a few days to get the silver right on 5 guys. And then I started to paint all of the intricate details and stuff and then started to hate my life.
It's not a normal silver, though, is it?
No, that's
anyone can paint silver. Your AdMech or your Imperial Knights and stuff like that. A bit of silver, a bit of a wash. But these guys are polished.
Yeah,
silver.
I got it to like
Should have just gone with the chrome rattle can, man.
Yeah.
I think I got it to quite a nice, like polished, like steely blue look, but it took a lot longer than I was expecting. So I think they're going to be actually more of a long term. Actually, trying to give myself a bit of a painting project for once, rather than just building and painting armies for like events or whatever.
That's a first.
Yeah, exactly. To break up that, to get stuff, actually then decided on a brand new army to start the edition, and that I can just get quickly done for events. So instead of sort of bringing up any of my existing armies to speed, I've decided to buy into Death Guard, which is a faction I've never explored in any of the old books or the last edition. I'm usually a big Zinch fanboy. I've got them in AOS. I've been playing with Thousand Suns since about 3rd edition. So going into Death Guard's a bit of a nice change. Throwing around loads of the technical paints and stuff is.
Yeah, you're going to enjoy working on those, man. I love painting anything Nurgle.
Yeah, they're
just go ham on it.
Yeah, it's almost like a satisfyingly easy way to paint, but not. Well, does that make sense?
Like I can be really quick and messy, and then just
that's it.
So that was the idea behind them, and I have to admit, they got a big boost at the end of Psychic Awakening. A lot of their like marine focused stuff is now usable really in the game. They've got a big boost, so it's not just you're not just seeing
new plague bearers.
Tanks. It's you're actually going to be seeing like the Terminators and the Plague Marines and all of the cool bits.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I've got a list floating around of sent sent a big list of models that I want to my local gaming shop, and they've ordered it all in for me, and I've been working on a big batch of plague bearers this weekend.
Nice.
Be posting up pictures of those soon. So that'll be that's pretty much my initial focus for the rest of the year. Is just get an army underway that's specifically designed for the edition, and now that we've seen and stuff, and then really learn to play the game with that before going back and adapting any of my other armies, which will all involve some cost here and there. So I'd rather build an army from scratch, designed to be played how the current edition is designed to be played, and then before sort of retrofitting anything else I've got.
It makes sense.
And then immediately buying the exact same thing as a replacement, because I do need a fifth tower.
I don't know why I'm laughing. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, they've gone back to battle suits again now. Now I feel silly for getting rid of all of mine.
See, you should just hold on to it, stuff it in a cabinet, let it collect dust,
there's
and then go, 6 editions on, I can bring my falcons back out.
There's not enough cabinets to put things in. I'm only going to 2-up do that.
Make some.
Okay, cool. Rad. So I think that sort of hopefully should give people a rough idea of what we're into, what we're about. Hopefully not too many people have switched off and have found at least one of us fairly personable. Possibly you. I imagine with the
I'm a delight.
Eldar disdain there is, you'll have a very niche sort of fan base maybe. And,
I can understand, but we connect on a different level.
You all cry about Inquisitors stealing your shuriken catapults.
Oh, don't even go there. Don't even go there. They obviously.
Tilda Swinton still making.
yeah, jog on.
Okay, fabulous. Right. Cool. So we're going to, so that's probably us done with this. We're probably just going to round this up by just saying thank you for paying attention, listen to us ramble on about ourselves and our current toys. And join us again in a minute whilst we go through our actual first impressions of the new edition. Thanks very much. Hi and welcome back to War Down South. I'm Callum, joined still by both Ricky and Sam.
Hey.
Yep, still here.
Fabulous. I've just poured myself a fresh glass of rum, and we are ready to go into our main segment. So we're going to be talking about our first impressions of the new edition of Warhammer 40k, and the 9th edition. So who wants to kick off with their sort of first high-level impressions of what we're expecting to see and what you like about this edition?
First off, what rum are we drinking?
So I've got a nice glass of Kraken with some cherry Pepsi and some lime.
Oh, and some lime.
Yeah, it's very nice, mate.
Oh man, you middle class, and is that like a fresh slice of lime?
Yeah, actual wedge of lime.
You've actually got a wedge of lime in your Kraken and cherry Pepsi Max.
Yeah, absolutely, mate.
Mate, that's next level. That is
a good way to do it.
Yeah, no, I'm missing a trick, obviously. Wow.
What about yourself?
What about you, Sam? Me. So I have literally just poured a Dead Man's Fingers spiced rum with a normal Pepsi Max, not the cherry. I've tried the cherry with it, and unfortunately, it kills the flavor a little bit too much.
Okay.
So a normal Pepsi Max with the Dead Man's Finger. It doesn't sound right, that does it?
Nope.
Nope. Is a good blend. And I have another one to try a little bit later.
Yeah, nice. And Sam, what are you drinking this evening?
I am drinking Nescafe Azera. Mmm. Now,
With rum.
if by rum you mean milk, then yes.
Um, yeah,
And
yeah, okay.
is a zero one of the decaf ones? Because you're very old to be drinking coffee.
This late, yeah.
If you say decaf to me again, I will hurt you. You
At
might as
the
well.
point of this
You might
recording,
as well put light mayonnaise in my sandwich and be done with it.
it is 9 o'clock,
So,
and you're drinking coffee.
Well, yeah,
Are you going to be all right, buddy?
yeah, I'll be fine. I'll be
You sure you're not going to sleep, are you?
fine.
so that was our segment about our first impressions of ninth edition. Hope you all enjoyed it.
Yeah, and tune in 2 weeks' time when we talk about a bit more.
Okay, so Ricky, first impressions, go.
It's I think it's a huge change from eighth personally. Eighth was a massive change from seventh, and it really streamlined the editions entirely and incorporated a lot of the older editions into a newer one. And this one has really redefined that, I think.
It's more than I expected, definitely. I was expecting like a almost like a tweak they did to Age of Sigmar when they made it into AOS 2.
Yeah,
I was expecting like a few things around the edges, but they made changes to be within Codex. So, but yeah, it's yeah, I definitely agree with you. That it's a massive change.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a lot of the things that you know a lot of people tried to a lot of people didn't like. Sorry, and they tried to, so from a tournament perspective, for example, they tried to change the way that eighth was to suit a more balanced gameplay. They've definitely addressed things like that, and it really is a really good addition. So I mean, where are we now? We're a week in,
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
And just from the first impressions of this book, you know, the subtleties, the reword, it really is, I think, so far shaped up to be a phenomenal edition ahead of us.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. I mean, um, the one thing that I sort of picked up on was that there are loads of things that I didn't necessarily see as being wrong with eight. But now that they've made adjustments and changes to it in ninth, you can sort of go, oh, wow, we were really backwards when we were playing eighth edition. So, for example, the like the new coherency rules initially appear like really restrictive and quite difficult to get your head around. But then you're thinking, yeah, it probably was a bit daft that I could have a unit of 20 guys cover 50 inches of the board.
Yeah,
Yeah, I am
So,
looking forward to the death of the conga line.
yeah, I have to admit it's something that I'd always used because I never thought there was anything wrong with it. Now I feel a bit ashamed for abusing it for so.
yeah, you're right. Even the way the reserves and transports work now, with you have to choose them prior to your deployment.
Yes,
So
yeah,
like the you rack up on this battlefield face to face with each other and not really knowing what's going on. Like in previous editions, you just be like, oh well, he's just popped them in that transport, then or pop them in reserve, so I don't actually have to worry too much now about popping these guys in a transport in reserve myself. So I just counter that, or the old, you know, just popping a guy in reserve just to counter off against someone deploying a unit or something like that, so you can allow someone to deploy 3 or 4 units just while you're sitting there going, yeah, I'll just pop him in reserve. Oh, I'll just pop him in reserve and just pop him in reserve.
yeah.
Like it's I think it's really changed that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. It definitely seems like there's a lot more. I I think there's a lot more to do at the start of the game, but also it's very easy to see what is going on. So, for example, when your
Yeah,
opponent's going to hand you their arm list, it's going to have all of their warlord traits, all of their relics, all of their psychic powers on. You're not having
yeah,
to keep track of all of that at the beginning of the game because they need this relic to specifically counter your thing, etc., etc.
and you don't have to wait for them for 15 minutes while they decide.
Yeah, exactly.
See, for me, that's just paperwork that I already did. So it's not even like a bloat at the start of the game for me because I've always written an army list that way. So it's nice that I'm going to get a bit of paper back from my opponent in a format that I'm used to.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's I have to admit, I always prefer to have all of the information sort of written in front of me. It is really easy because then you can use it. I mean, especially like most of the games I actually play are centered around events. So it's really easy just to have that physical reference point, and then during the game, if I'm asking a question, and I can point to it on an army list and go, "Oh, what does this do? What does this do again?" Or or just look at it. We've all got phones. Some of us are using the new 40K app, much maligned as it is, apparently. But
Ooh, controversy. Let's not get into this.
yeah,
I'm not breaking that hornet nest.
But just someone giving me their army list and in either having the codex to hand or something like on my phone, I
Yeah,
can look at it and see what it does without them having to go, oh, was it that sorcerer who's got those psychic powers? Or it's
that's
just,
it.
something that just makes a lot more sense, but didn't necessarily seem wrong the last time round.
Mm.
It's almost something that was always used to be encouraged, but it was never enforced, if that makes sense, via
Yeah.
an official rule.
Yeah, yeah. No, I would. I definitely agree with that because I mean, if you can not spend those points up front until you literally need to, so you see your opponent's army list and go, oh, you've got a psyker. I'm going to take the Gene Stealer Cult relic on sniper rifle that lets me kill psykers on like twos and make them explode. That's awesome.
Sorry, what?
It's gross. There, it's essentially a sniper rifle that gives them +2 to wound, but they've got a rule where anytime they wound a psyker, it perils.
Oh,
With that +2 to wound, they were initially, so they're like normal sniper rifles, so they do a mortal wound on a 6, and that buffs it to a 4+. So on a 4+ to wound, you're doing a mortal wound plus D3 mortal wounds from perils, D3 wound weapon, and then if the perils kills them, then they explode and do more wounds to everything around. But it's one of those relics that you would always buy at the start of the game because you might be rocking up to somebody who doesn't have any psychers.
yeah.
So now having to like pre-plan that makes it more vital at the list writing stage, not to write something that's just going to, take on all comers, but you got to think what's the chances are that I'm going to play a psyker, for example, or anything like that.
So as a Gene Stealer Cult player, would you now choose that prior?
I would consider it quite heftily, mainly because their only real ways of taking sniper rifles are on their characters, and they're actually quite good at they both the Jackal Alpha and the Sanctus hit on 2s, so they're quite actually good
Yeah,
at picking out characters.
they're
And
actually good snipers.
yeah, and with the changes to sort of like force organization charts and people seeing, you likely to see fewer detachments. That should logically flow that there'll be less characters running around,
Yeah,
which then makes those fewer characters more important to an army. So if you're thinking, oh, if I can kill someone, even if they only bring along a librarian or a sorcerer or a farseer, you can go, okay, well, that farseer is now more important to their army because they've not got 3 of them flying around. So I would definitely consider it, but hopefully that makes us, it makes it a bit more of an exercise in thought.
It's back down to the way I think it used to be, where you used to have to try and create an army to balance more.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely,
Yeah.
and also um, the thing that I'm really like that sort of feeds into is whether or not it's because of the start of ninth edition or where we're at with sort of the disruption to tournaments because of COVID. I think we'll see the development of lots of local tournament metas because there aren't going to be these massive 2, 3, 400 player events going across the world where everyone's got instant access to everybody's army lists.
Mm.
So when I'm playing at a local tournament like Confrontation, and I've got to think, well, am I going to see a load of Psykers? Am I going to see a load of Knights? I know there's lots of people in the local area who play with Knights, so should I gear like my equipment and my army to dealing with that, even though Knights aren't possibly like the world beaters that they used to be? So I'm quite excited about that. That's quite cool. Be interesting to then play people from across the country, and you sort of get a clash of how different groups are playing different army lists in different ways. So that's really nice and fresh and exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, this is that really creative portion at the start of a new edition before everyone sets into a routine. Like midway to like late eighth, you could rock up to an event and you would know what would be in a particular army. Pretty much, you could almost call it. I like this experimentation phase at the start of a new edition before the meta sets in. Really,
100%. This is where the funny stuff starts happening, or the stuff that where you think is brilliant and you don't really know how it's going to turn out. Like what we've been talking about throughout the week, where one of our friends, Chris, who's been talking about looking at his Eldar again and throwing together an entire mechanized Eldar army. Like he hasn't looked at his Eldar in like 4 years or so,
Yeah, probably
give or take.
yeah, probably about
quite.
Yeah, and you think like, is this edition just really looking like it's the time to start toying with different business? I mean, it is, because obviously we're at the start of a new edition, and it's exciting for sure. It's funny. It's enjoyable seeing what's coming out of it so far, and seeing some little battle reports and what the local community around us is starting to throw about. It's fun. It's exciting.
Yeah, 100%. I love seeing that sort of thing. I mean, um, hopefully we're at a point where how ninth is sort of structured with the generic baseline of command points. You'll see a lot more different armies, like we said, entirely mechanized Elder army with no infantry.
not seen that in a long time.
Not seen that in a long time, or it's maybe got like just 15 Dire Avengers in it or something like that. But
yeah,
so you get to see like these really nice dynamic looking armies that because you had to generate as many CPs as you could previously. The game isn't just like, oh, you've got 6 units of troops and 6 HQs, and then just every army is a different version of that. Because
I'm right in saying that the Supreme Command has changed, hasn't it?
Yeah, Supreme Command.
Yeah, very much.
So that whole 6 character thing is gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So that's now a single HQ or Lord of War, but they have to then be either a Primarch, a Demon Primarch, or the new.
That's correct. Yeah.
Command.
I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, huge, massive. Because it means you can't. It's very difficult then for people to just sort of bolt the good characters into their army. Like a load of like Chaos armies at the end of the last edition were bolting a Word Bearer's Supreme Command detachment into their armies, or a Thousand Suns one, just to have access to loads of really good psychers that could just either throw out a load of decent smites or loads and loads of buff spells.
I suppose that has killed your doubles list.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, the changes to Supreme Command is finally put rest to mine and Rob's Magnus, Araman, and 2 sorcerers with Mortarion and a Demon Prince and 2 sorcerer list after a load of fun run outs. So, I'll actually have to think of an army list that requires some sort of thought from now on, because that was just a case of rocking up to a 2-day event, drinking the bar out of rum and pushing 2 big models around the board and seeing how it went.
I think it's still viable. Obviously, probably not in that format, but pushing 2 models around the table and drinking lots of rum is still, what 40k is about, right?
Well, yeah. Why do you think I take low model count armies?
Yeah, so you can rock up the bar faster than everybody else.
You can drink more because there's less to look after.
Yeah, exactly.
That's definitely, and it is good to have that inherent ability to at least believe that I do everything better when I'm half cut.
You do have that, what's the word? Self-confidence when you've had a few.
Yeah.
It's cute. It's very cute.
I definitely either feel better or I do actually like play better. I'm better at cards. I'm better at 40k. I'm better at hosting podcasts. But yeah, it's the way to go. I mean, I love going away to events, like regardless of what we're playing. Like 9th edition 40k looks like it's going to be really good to play at all levels. So whether or not that's like a pickup game at lunch, introducing like a friend to 40k, or going away to like even like a small local event, or once the world's back to normal, these large events. It's quite nice that it scales nicely, and at those large events I will be stumbling around and propping myself up on the table, stinking of booze all day. Sure.
Yeah, definitely. It's really got a sense of almost like a balanced achievement about itself. Like it's supposed to be played through all levels and not have this particular standard sitting high and mighty versus this little I've only just been introduced to the game style player.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, and I think that GW are getting closer and closer to a rule set that pretty much lets you take what you want, whilst also making sure that is balanced in a way. Like Sam is more than free to bring along all of his wacky, stupid tactics. That isn't actually hindered too much by that.
No, like there's a cost to it, isn't there? But
it's not like it was before, where if you showed up with all those super heavies, you were then having to cram in like a battalion or 2 of guides just to actually have the CPs to win.
Yeah, just to have it function.
It's a lot more forgiving for sure.
They've definitely
take those fun things.
They've definitely hit the nail on the head with take what you want in the Imperial side, like with the recent fix to the Inquisition and the Assassins and some of the wacky character units they've added in, where you can slot these things easily and not lose chapter tactics and things like that now.
Really?
Yeah. So you can slot Inquisitors, Assassins.
That's a nice little change.
That mental nun with the clown, things like that. They've made they're making lots of little units like that you can slot into Imperial armies without screwing yourself out of all the special rules that you desperately wanted. So that's made me very happy.
I quite like that. I like that a lot of the armies are going along the line of, if you play pure this Space Marine chapter, you do get a benefit for it. And then not giving those sorts of rules to put in like an Inquisitor or an Assassin into those armies without breaking it really fits the narrative really well.
Yeah.
So I hope that sort of carries on in that sort of vein, so you're not seeing like like loads of Catachan artillery with Cadian tanks, for example.
They all look the same.
Yeah, they're all the same. But you would put on like as someone who sort of goes to events but likes to still enjoy the sort of like narrative aspect and the visual aspect of the game. Sort of go, I'm playing against a Catachan, not a generic guard army that is just built up of all the good rules. So I hope that they continue down that and give everybody benefits for playing like a pure faction.
Yeah.
And that would be great, in all honesty. So we'll see how that goes. I think Marines were the first like real test of it.
Well, they always will be, won't they?
Yeah, but I mean, what you would imagine was the first codex really written for this edition was probably Sisters of Battle, and they've got a similar rule to the chapter tactics. They get a nice little bonus at the start of the game, as long as they're like pure from one. I don't think it's necessarily from one of their sub factions, but if you've got guard in there, for example, you don't get their little benefit at the start of the game, which lets them either like get pluses to deny the witch and stuff like that. But slotting an Inquisitor in there who does have a special rule, like is nice and thematic, doesn't cause like this awesome combination of things to work. But looks cool and makes sense on the table as well.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully that will continue. That's something to keep a close eye on. I mean, we're not too far away from Necrons and Marines coming out, so another iteration of the Marine Codex. But be interesting to see how that slots in the future. But that's October, I think they've said that those codexes are coming out.
I think so, something like that.
I mean, it always has to be done, doesn't it? Like Space Marines always have to be the first. I know a lot of people go, "Oh, it's all about Space Marines," but if there's people out there that watch the designers' commentaries and read the designer notes and stuff about how they produce and write the rules for everything, like Space Marines are literally the primary faction within 40k. There's no doubt about that. But so what they always have to do is they always have to get their book right. They're always the first faction that has to come out, and everything evolves around it with regards to balance. Like, so they have to be first. And I remember Phil Kelly saying in one of the designer commentaries that we have to get it right. We have to get the Marines out there first, and this is the foundation that is that edition. So Marines will be out, and then every race will always follow, because then you get the power curves and the balances between all the other races in conjunction with how the Marines are currently performing. So yeah, we're going to see Marines next, and then we're going to bring Necrons obviously in par with it, because effectively you're a 40-odd thousand-year-old race. You're going to be just as good on the battlefield, aren't you, or if not better? And then we're all going to see all the others start coming in line with it as the books start coming out. And so yeah, Marines are going to be first, and I always expect it. So if anybody wants to shout out and cry about it, that's unfortunately that's the way it has to be.
Yeah. I mean, as you said, you've been playing for 25 years or so. You've probably seen every iteration of Marines coming out first with all the cool things.
Exactly, yeah. And they're always first. And yeah, and just like I said, and just like Phil Kelly obviously said on the production of how they designed, that's the basis of what all races are based on. It just is what it is.
And I mean, to be fair, from a like purely numbers and business perspective, nothing would exist without the Space Marines.
So if you want the cool toys first, have some Space Marines in the cupboard.
The end. That's
always.
I mean, for example, the current Space Marine Codex was a bit of a shock to the system when it came out. I mean, it really set that sort of benchmark real high, especially with its.
It was incredible. Like that was that reminded me of the dawn of the Inari from the back end of seventh when
Yeah, maybe. I mean, everybody really, really happy if they were playing with it,
it,
and really nauseated
yeah,
if they weren't.
exactly. Like
I
this
think there was a
army would
lot of
not lose.
I think there was a lot of we didn't think of that from the rules writing team once players got their hands on those supplements, like the Iron Hands cogitated martyrdom conga
Yeah,
line
yeah.
for Leviathan.
It's
Oh,
almost
oh yeah,
it's
of course.
almost like it really is almost like they know when an edition's coming to an end and they start just churning some stuff out for funds. I obviously
Well,
appreciate this isn't the case, but it almost feels like it.
I mean, not necessarily. I would say there's probably some level in that of truth, not necessarily for fun, but almost to try things out.
Yes,
So,
it's
can I remember
almost
when?
where
I
the new
mean,
edition's going to go.
yeah, because I mean, I can remember when Unari first came out and we were playing the
Oh,
game, and
I remember. Yeah,
uh,
bless you.
and you were using the new Ulthway rules at the time in Gathering Storm, and it's like, what do you mean you don't scatter when you deep strike and you can be 7 inches away? This is madness. You're supposed to scatter and deep strike mishap and all that nonsense. And then, less than a year later, it's like, oh, I'm going to deep strike exactly 9 inches away
Yeah,
in a risk to myself.
and that was a
Now we've got
massive introduction to new ranges as well, wasn't it? Where things always used to be like fours, eights, 12, sixes, 24s, that type of thing. Like it kind of almost rounded numbers, whereas the Inari introduction was sevens, 14s, stuff like this. And so when a new edition dropped, we had nines, we had 14-inch movements, 21 in like these really random numbers of uh like uh things that we'd never really seen in 40k, I don't think, before.
Well, I think that's definitely something that they've taken with and sort of run with is um, for like in-game measurements, like for that everything and movement, everything is now customized to the actual unit it's designed for.
Yeah,
Um, which means that because they open it up, like jet bikes now aren't moving 12 inches the same as a guy on a normal bike. They're moving 14, 16. So it's quite, because they've opened that up, it's quite granular. And now you've got some things that are infantry but slower, like Terminators are slower than normal. That makes
yeah,
sense. Um, and the jump of from seventh to eighth and then eighth to ninth, I think has not been that sort of sea change where um, everything is now changing to be unique. We're now used to everything acting like that, and now you've seen everything get sort of tweaked,
yeah, totally.
Which is great. I'm I'm very excited about where this edition's hopefully going. Interesting to see how it affects all armies, especially like the missions. The missions were something that when all the leaks were coming out for ninth, I was just sat there like, oh, I need to see the missions to start designing armies and seeing how this edition actually plays. And it's such a radical change from my perspective, because I've never played ITC, always played chapter approved tournaments and stuff like that. So where in the chapter approved and GW missions, you had sort of each mission was specifically unique. Now we've got a sort of mission where you're choosing your secondaries, you're fighting over some sort of generic territory-based objectives, but the way you are playing the game, the way your opponent's playing the game is potentially very different based on the second, which is really interesting. I think that's something that they borrowed from Adeptus Titanicus.
Yeah,
It's got
good,
that
isn't it?
sort of because that's got that same sort of game setup. So you play like a generic mission, and then you choose your own submissions to achieve in that, and whether or not that's like capturing territory or killing the big titan or whatever. And it's good to see that influence is definitely dropped into the new edition of 40k.
Yeah, I like it. I definitely like the idea that this is your mission, and yeah, like you said, one army may be playing that mission in a completely different way because, like you say, you've got two completely different missions to be playing alongside that one mission, so it becomes a less predictable game.
Yeah.
That X unit is going to run down the battlefield and claim X objective when he actually ends up doing something different because those VPs can be racked up consecutively throughout the game, and he's off going doing that. And he's going to score higher doing that than he is running down a battlefield and getting killed, just for the sake of claiming an objective once, which we saw a lot of in 8th. I feel like I did anyway.
It's going to be the make or break of how you play now, I think. Taking that moment to figure out what secondaries are going to benefit you most across the course of the game.
Yeah, see, that's you're exactly right there. I think that's the key. You're sort of thinking that if you're even if you're showing up to like a pickup game or you're at a game at a club or at an event, you've got to think, can my army play the primary mission? So can I capture objectives and hold them, or force my opponent off of their objectives? And then sort of, do you build an army with 1 or 2 secondaries in mind that you're going to take 4 games out of 5 and then sort of see what the mission is and see what your opponent is to pick the others? Or do you just go gun-ho and just sort of build your army and sort of wing it at the start of every game? Or do you build your army with all 3 secondaries in mind? And I think we'll see a mix of those players, which is really interesting to see which of those play styles will maybe work against the other one, or whether or not it will just be a case of if you pick the good secondaries that your army can do, you win, or you've got a better chance of winning, should I say. I just can't wait to get a good amount of games under my belt and then just sort of learn what that level of secondary choice will be.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the big learning curve for the edition, more than anything else.
Yeah, I think the actual game mechanics, I think, are quite simple once you remember the differences. I know that I've definitely got a list of things to look out for. The things that have definitely changed that I'm definitely going to be playing wrong, or that you would expect people to get wrong. So is there anything that you've come across like that, maybe, that you think people have just sort of skimmed over, missed, or would maybe misinterpret it? Because some of the rules are quite wordy now.
I've not yet. I know Ricky. What Ricky was mentioning earlier that he's putting together a cheat sheet for that sort of thing.
yeah. But I think there's a few huge huge changes that are relatively similar to 8th, but when we move into 9th, that transition period I think may be a little bit longer because the rulings are quite similar. Infantry, beasts, and swarms are like the only things that are going to be benefiting from terrain. Like that's mega in my head. Like you're not cramming that falcon in a wood type jobby, or you know where I'm going with this. Like it's literally just the little guys that are the ones actually being able to benefit from it. Nothing any larger. Like even bikes. Like out the new Outriders. I mean, they're small enough. They're still quite low, but you ain't having anything. You're big enough. You're tough enough already. Suck it up.
Well, that's definitely something. I mean, you can still use the terrain to their advantage, so you can still hide them behind like obscuring terrain and stuff like that. But the actual like benefits of cover are something that have definitely changed. It's very unlikely now that unless you've got like a special rule on a tank that lets it have cover or like cover, for example, to get the extra save, that you'll actually see that, which makes it definitely more interesting for your like your infantry placement, because they are the things that are going to win you the game. Really, they're going to be the ones holding the objective and doing the action and stuff, which is definitely quite cool. That's a really interesting point. Is there anything else that you guys have picked up that you think people will either miss or that's not been like highlighted in like group chats or anything like that?
I don't think so. Nothing off the top of my head, anyway.
Yeah. So Sam's the person who hasn't paid attention to the new edition.
Command rerolls, like command rerolls are now all the dice, and not just one.
Yeah. So for like charges,
like you've got
exactly.
One. So there is almost like there's no more gambling. Whether you need just oh no, I've rolled a 1, but all I really needed was a 3. Oh shit! Now I've got to roll. Them both again, and this is going to be completely out there. This is, I think this is huge as well. Like, I think that's really going to change the way things are, and that reroll can't be used for a lot of particular things now either, can it?
No.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, like tanks blowing up, or even worse, characters in vehicles rolling that 1. And dying. You can't reroll that anymore.
Has that changed across a character being in the vehicle at the same time as a unit?
Not that I've seen.
So if you still got 4 guys and a character, you still roll 5 dice.
Yeah,
but I would definitely not be putting multiple Archons in a venue anymore because I was likely to waste the command reroll and rolling that 1 anyway, because anytime an Archon is supposed to do something, shadow fields and surviving car crashes. But yeah, you definitely won't put them in things on the road. Maybe in a raider with nine other models. just to not lose your war.
I mean, that's the same with. So you're talking about a couple of Archons in a raider, as well. Like characters now not being able to targeted only when they're within 3 inches of another unit, and that unit has to be 3 or more models.
Yeah, I was just about to mention this. This is, I don't think it's going to catch people out for long, but there's definitely going to be an adjustment period where
people aren't being so ballsy with their characters.
Yeah, or people are going to forget about it and get caught with their trousers down.
Yeah, see, I think that's it. Like initially, I think people are going to go into a game going, I've set up my bubbles, I've got all of my buffs, etc., etc. But it's when the game, moves your castle out of shape, or you've got units deep striking and you're having to react with that movement. Is now your characters aren't just safe wandering around the backfield, like preventing people deep striking in or sitting on objectives. They're now having to actually stay close to the action, which is then still inherently dangerous because you can delete that unit of 5 guys that stood in front, or just kill 3 of them, and then you can do that. Yeah, that's quite cool. That's definitely going to be an adjustment. As a Genestealer cult player, I was definitely just sort of, here's my wall of 100 guys, and then all my characters have been running around capturing objectives behind them.
That was the same with my Harlequins. I would play in a very, very offensive, front field, like a forward playing army, and you've got like your death jesters just hanging around the back going doopy doopy doo, shooting a bit, doing this and that. But for 45 points, they'd just be sitting there racking it up. Now they're on their own. It won't take a lot for someone just to blow them away if they're not anywhere near another unit.
Yeah, well, no, yeah, absolutely. Especially like characters, like say, like Harlequins. Yes, they've got 4+ vulnerable stats, but typically they're toughness 3 with 4 wounds or something like that.
Exactly. It won't take long from an intercessor squad or something just to fire once, and they're gone.
Yeah. That's yeah. The character change is something that I definitely like because it still gives them that level of protection, but you can't just be sort of unharmed because there are other models on the table,
Yeah.
which is quite cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a good change. It's a definitely good change. Um,
the one thing that I sort of picked up on that I haven't seen about too often, and it was in doing research for like my Grey Knights and my Thousand Sons is that you now have to do all of the all of the psychic powers on a unit before moving on to another caster.
yeah, that's it. You
Um,
can't bounce between psychers anymore to see how the effects are going to pan out, can you?
yeah, so that's quite interesting because you used to be able to like manipulate. So with Thousand Sons, you used to be able to manipulate sort of the order you would do your thousand smites in, use some other psychic powers to sort of blast away screens, and then do a smite with that character later on in the
Yeah.
turn. Um, so that's quite cool. I think that's something that doesn't really make that much of an impact on the game, but it just makes sense.
I think it has
Um,
got a big impact on the game for those armies that benefit from more than one psyker. So your Grey Knights, your
oh yeah,
Thousand Sons, your Eldar, even some Imperial armies and stuff like that. Like those transitions between psychers and results of each psycher's power, it was massive. Like you know,
yeah.
it
I would say for the armies that have lots of multiple casting cycles, yeah, it is more of an impact than anybody else. Obviously, if you've got one or two guys who cast one or two spells, it's not that much of a change.
yeah, like
Um,
Imperial Guard with maybe three little, you know, terrible psychers.
Yeah,
It's not
there's not
really
going to
going
be
to be
any
a
change in how
massive
they do things, is there?
no. But three, three Eldari psychers is it's going to be a huge factor of how things are going to happen, and yeah, it's good. I agree that it deserves it as an addition, but it's a big change and it's a good change.
yeah, see, that's one of the things that I sort of looked at and was like, yeah, that does make sense. I'm not shocked by this change. It's one of those things that you never really thought of.
Because you're always
But then I
benefiting
looked
from it, really.
at well, yeah, exactly.
You're like, yeah,
Um,
whatever.
yeah,
Boo, 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 boo.
so yeah, so that's something that I picked up on that I hadn't seen. I think it was in like a Goonhammer article or something like that as well. But I've not really seen like in when I'm having conversations with people like we're having, that people have gone, oh yeah, you have to. It's quite an interesting little thing. Like like again the new like saves mechanic in that
Mm.
you have to all of the saves on the same model now, regardless of whether or not they take any wounds in a phase. See, that's something that doesn't affect 9 out of 10
How's that
armies.
change?
But
Sorry, that's something I've missed. How's that
um,
change? So
yeah,
normally, if a model was
so
wounded, you would have to continue to try and wound him if he was wounded.
yes, but so now if you take a save for a model, regardless of whether or not they're
Oh, he
wounded, you
must
have to then
continue.
continue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can't add. So it
Ah,
really only affects custodes and a couple of other armies who would have like an ablative storm shield guy in a unit. So you'd have like two custode guys with spears and one with a storm shield, and the spear guys would take all the bolt rounds,
yeah.
not take any wood because they got two up saves, and then the storm shield guy dives in front of the lads. Um, but now you would have to continue taking the saves on whoever you start to take them on, and that's something that again doesn't affect most armies, but sort of curves back the maybe unintended beneficiaries of how the rule was written before.
Yeah.
So
There's
that's
a
quite
bit of a
cool. That's
change
something
to
that's
Death Watch. Am I right?
yeah,
Like
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
the
That,
Yeah,
multiple different guys in those units used to be able to palm stuff off left, right, and center, couldn't they?
yeah. Essentially, yeah. Because I mean, it's only really on the like the veteran squads have all got one wound. So when they failed a save, they died
Yeah.
anyway.
That's why you used to have to put a biker in there or a gravis armor or something, didn't you?
Yeah. So now you're, but now, yeah, if you've got one or two storm shield guys in the unit and someone shoots like a las cannon or a bunch of plasma guns at you first, that guy is going to take those saves, and if he survives, he's then taking all the las gun shots as well, and then you're losing that valuable piece. I think against a few armies, that will make people think about their like the order of their shots that they're taking and stuff like that. That's something that I really quite like. And again, wasn't something that a non-games designer, ever thought about, really. It was just sort of, that's how you take saves. And now it's changed and it just makes sense.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. I guess it reflects that literally everything on the battlefield is pretty much happening at once.
Yeah, which is really good.
Which is good. I mean, what else? Like, we haven't mentioned it, and I'm surprised, to be fair. Overwatch.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the.
I guess we're all bored of that change now. We've all established it happened.
Yeah, it's happened. The end. Like they said when they published the change. 99% of the time, Overwatch was just an exercise in rolling dice and nothing happening. So, is it that much of a loss, really? No.
No, exactly. And the one army that really liked Overwatch still likes Overwatch in the town. So that's a very good point. I mean, I guess the change to Overwatch was drip fed to us about 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, maybe now. I've lost all track of time and space, so it could have only been a couple of weeks ago, but I can remember that being the big, oh my god, what have they done thing, and then we all just sort of accept that it's like, yeah, that's cool. You get to do it once, and you got to pay for it, unless you towel. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Don't charge towel. There you go. You never did anyway.
Yeah, that's it. Like, that's one thing I never really ever did, unless I had something that stopped you shooting me.
Yeah, and then that stuff will still now be good, because now you charge the one unit that they'd want.
Yeah, it didn't change much, did it? Like, if you knew how Tau worked, you didn't really charge Tau. And now,
I mean, even if you didn't really know how Tau worked, you knew not to charge them.
Well, I don't know. They're not like they're welding big stabby swords at you, are they? Going, come on, I'm going to cut your throat.
I don't know. I'm fairly certain there are tribes in the Amazon as yet untouched by man that know not to charge a Tau gun line.
It should be. To be fair, I'm surprised that's not in the core rule. But
don't charge with Amazonian.
With GW's stock footage of like people playing Warhammer, it's like, here are the key rules to the game. This is what a tape measure is. This is what a dice is. This is what a Tau gun line looks like, and what you can do. It's something really fundamental, because I can imagine.
No, Timmy, don't charge that.
See, and you mock me for liking Howling Banshees. They're the perfect Tau gun line unit.
Are they, though? They still don't hurt anything when they get there.
I don't know. They can hurt Tau. Tau don't get a save. They wound Tau on 4s. All right, that's probably not that compelling an argument.
No. The thing is that now you have to get... Now those Howling Banshees have to get through the unit of the big screens of Kroot that are going to be in front of every tower.
Or screens of broadsides. or battle suits. Yeah. Damn.
Yeah. And then they get deleted. So I still follow that train of thought that Howling Banshees are trash.
We'll see.
Regardless,
we'll see. By the time that we broadcast our next one, me and Callum would have had our game, and Howling Banshees would have been triumph against his Tau gun line. You wait.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
I will ready Tumbleweed and Howling Wind sound effects for that episode.
Yeah.
But to be fair, so combat is where combat and charging sort of segueing off of Overwatch is where there's been a lot of changes that also I don't think people realise. Like for example, the choosing to activate units has changed. So obviously, chargers get to fight first. Still, we're all well aware of that. But then when it's time to choose like non-charging units, your opponent gets to pick one first.
It's finally brought in that sequence that we all should have thought that should have been there in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, you get the advantage of previously you got the advantage of all your charging units fighting first, and then still picking another unit.
Yeah, that was a bit off, wasn't it?
So that's a nice simple change. Now I think doesn't really change a lot, but also just sort of maybe tempers the want to just go all out assault with armies, maybe. Because I would imagine most armies you see, probably apart now, will have a scary sort of counter-attacking combat unit.
Tau.
Yeah, except Tau, obviously. Unless they've got Farsight, because Farsight will kick the crap out of most of them.
Except Power and Banshees.
He is with a big choppy sword.
What are Howling Banshees we in Farsight on, Rick? I mean, you seem to be the authority on that.
5s. I mean, I don't know actually. What's the toughness of Farsight now? 5 still.
Yeah, I think he's tough.
So maybe winning him on 5s. That's good.
He's got a 4-up in.
Don't forget, Banshees are like a third of his price. Like,
we'll see.
I'm sure there's people out there listening to this now that are backing me 100% going Banshees for the win. Banshees are amazing models. Banshees deserve to be on the tabletop. Banshees are amazing. And then there's the rest of you that are with the rest of you two.
The rest of the people who have a little bit of common sense.
I was going to sit here and polish my Imperial Shuriken catapult.
yeah. All right.
Yeah, I can imagine you quite enjoyed that because that's a real retro flashback thing, isn't it? Being able to.
I'm not old enough to know what you're on about.
Are you sure?
No, I know.
So what have I missed?
Way back in the day, you just have Marine captains running around with Shuriken catapults because why the hell not?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I remember. Back in the edition that most people who used to play that edition can't escape from, and always refer to it being the best edition. Is this what we're talking about?
yeah, that one.
Yeah, good times.
Yeah, hearing about that makes third edition when I started playing seem like a really enlightened and well thought out game.
Third edition was an enlightening and well thought out game. It was, we wouldn't be where we are now without that.
That's true. That's very true. But also, I don't think we would be where we are now with the current edition of 40k without Age of Sigmar, strangely enough, because a lot of it's really poor.
Yeah, I mean, even Lord of the Rings or Middle Earth strategy battle game, whatever you want to call it now. But I prefer Lord of the Rings because it's less of a mouthful,
which is quite impressive because it's it's still a bunch of words.
It just rolls better.
Yeah, there's a few bits and pieces with that. But yeah, it's quite. I mean, sort of rounding back to the sort of point about the missions that are possibly influenced by the Adeptus Titanicus stuff. It's really interesting to see how all of these, or especially the two and three main core games, can be similar and influence each other, but not the same. It's not just AOS isn't just 40k with big monsters instead of everything running around with guns.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I will probably be stabbed walking home from a takeaway saying something like this, but back in the earlier editions of 40k, so second and Warhammer, wherever it was at the time, third maybe, They were 100% a reflection of each other. Just one played with square bases in a block and moved slightly different to the other one. And one played with round bases and wasn't in a block and moved slightly different to the other one. But effects of most of the battlefield happenings really were the same. They were basically the same game. They had the same mechanics. They were just played on, and it's good to see that they evolved in completely different ways from each other.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And they've kept it that way. Like, they've stolen bits and pieces from each other and so on, but they really are different games.
Be interesting to see if we're still saying that whenever AOS 3 rolls around and then they're being made to play.
It depends on whether Sigmarite warriors and stuff end up with bolt rifles and rhinos.
Suspicious looking up.
Well,
when I
the
say
bolt form is
rhino,
already
we're
a
actually when I say rhino, we're actually talking about large mechanized rhinoceros that they're riding around on.
That's very on brand for Age of
Exactly.
Sigmar, though,
exactly. You know it's going to happen, don't you?
Well, I mean, sort of blood crushers already exist. They're essentially that.
Yeah, they really are. It's exactly what they are, actually.
Yeah. Just with an angry, blood-fueled demon inside of it instead of lightning or whatever Sigmar likes.
So it's effectively a real rhinoceros, like angry, blood-fueled anger inside of it.
Yeah, rather than the rhinoceros from Ace Ventura 2, which is got a comedian inside of loads of electrons. Right. So having completely segued away from 40k, it's probably a good time for us to sort of wrap there. I think we've covered quite an interesting amount. I think it's safe to say that we're on board with the new edition.
I think so.
I'd say that's a consensus. We're definitely at.
Yeah, I'm very happy.
I mean, it's better than having an opinion from someone who doesn't play a game. On a podcast.
Yeah, that's true.
I would just like the plague to subside enough that I can actually roll some dice. That'd be nice. Although that said, the plague has been good for getting things painted.
For some people.
I mean, when did we lock down? March.
Yeah.
I don't think I've painted anything.
You've got 10,000 points there already done. Anyway. So cool. So yeah, seems like we're fairly on board. I mean, the 40k community itself, apart from the very strange people who comment nothing but hate on their Facebook posts, everyone seems to be fairly on board with the new edition. Board sizes and codexes being released aside.
I think as soon as lockdown's over, people have a slightly more positive attitude on things. I don't think 40k is the reason for their negativity. I just think that it's taken the brunt.
No, but yeah, possibly. Cool. So anything else really you'd like to go over? Just get any last points in whilst we're still on the topic of the new edition?
Nothing from me.
Nothing from you. Well, you weren't paying attention anyway.
I do what I
want. No, but I have just poured a Peaky Blinder black spiced rum and Pepsi Max. Now this is divine.
It does sound good. I'll have to have a look into that, but it's probably then probably time for us to stop before you start slurring your words.
Send me a link to that. I want some of that.
Cool, brilliant. Well, that sort of fills up this segment, our first major segment of the War Down South podcast. It's been exactly like I was expecting it to be, going massively off tangent and hearing. Yes. Cool. So anything you guys want to point people towards just before we sign off? Any Twitters or Instagrams or anything like that?
Well, obviously there is our Twitter at War Down South. You can follow my hobby blunders on Instagram at 40ammers. That's 40 AMMERZ. That is me.
Cool. All of my stuff is available on Instagram and Twitter under Sir Callum. So that is Callum spelled incorrectly. CLAWLUM, because I was unfortunate enough not to check something when I first signed up to social media, and it was. Ricky, anything you want to put
I
towards?
can't say I ever noticed, but yeah. You can find me a couple of times on Instagram under Cigarettes Jest, which is kind of my personal blog about my Eldar inspired painting and hobby collecting and so on. You can also find me Confrontation Events, which is kind of more about the events that I run in 40k. And also you can grab me on Twitter at Confrontation EV. And that's kind of more just my personal ramblings about Warhammer as a general hobby than it is anything to do with anything else, to be fair. And yeah, that's it. That's me.
Thanks very much for walking through that with me, guys. Really thoroughly enjoyed it. I know that when I stand up the couple of glasses I've run that I've had is probably going to probably force me to fall over, so we should probably call it for now. But I just want to take the opportunity to thank you guys for helping getting this up and running, Sam for sorting out all of the tech, because both Ricky and I are fairly inept.
Hey.
And you guys for being here to bounce some ideas off of. And thanks very much for anybody listening. Have a good evening.
Take it easy, fellas.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.